everybody, and welcome to CEO Chat 1030 edition. My name is Al Cini.
I'm Joe Asamendi.
Joe. Asamendi.
That's it.
I just want to make sure I'm pronouncing that
You got it right.
I've only been 2 years.
Yeah,
By now I should have that down.
You're a slow learner.
Do you know who we have on the program today?
I believe we have Paul
Visokey.
Visokey, right.
Paul Visokey, who is an expert in helping people sell their businesses.
Welcome, Paul.
Thank you.
What a pleasure having you on the program.
It is my pleasure.
And you have a unique area of expertise that people who are watching our program, who might be business owners or founders,
Right.
people who've been working, as you said before the program, in their businesses, maybe for the past 15 or 20 or 24, 30 years,
30 plus in some cases.
are now thinking about that moment when they'll be transferring that wealth to somebody that might be a buyer. I mean, we're talking about that. So, so at Stony Hill Advisors, you're the president, you're the founder.
Correct.
And you help companies figure out how much they can get and get the most they can for their companies when they sell them.
Yes, that's correct.
That's great. How long have you been doing that?
I started the company in 2010, beginning of 2010.
Great.
So it's 9 years now.
A little later on, we'll talk about your background and where you came to earn all this expertise that you got. But I want to start with a big question that you kind of sent along before the program, and that is this tsunami of business sales that we know is coming because baby boomers are going to be exiting their businesses over the next 5, 10, 15 years.
Correct.
That means we're shifting from seller's market really to from a buyer's market to a seller's market,
Yes.
or other way around.
The other way around. But the
Yeah,
buyers
I mean,
will be
it's-
predominant.
there's going to be a
more
lot of
sellers than
competition,
buyers.
More sellers than buyers. And in that case, then people really do need to worry now about the value of their business 5 years from now.
Yes, they have to get it ready.
Okay, great. How do you help them with that?
Well, there's a number of ways. If the first part is you just mentioned is put a value on the business now because I have never met a business owner in serious conversation who accurately had an idea of their value of the business. They all overestimate. So you have to measure that now. Then you can start the process of identifying the gap between what it's currently worth and what they may need in terms of retirement. And there's a process to improve value over that period of time, whatever it is, 3, 5 years, in some cases 1 year. You can squeeze some improvement in 1 year to get the value up.
Well, and the reason why they need you is because while you only get to sell your business once,
Right.
that's not a whole lot of experience in selling businesses, right?
Right.
You've helped lots of companies, lots of people transfer their businesses over the last, since 2010.
Yes.
Almost 10 years now.
Yes.
And that kind of experience really makes a difference. How much emotion is involved in this transaction?
That's a big issue in many, many cases. When you build something, again, 30 years, let's say, there's a lot of pride and a lot of confidence that if they've been successful over that time, they know what they're doing. Then the emotion on the buyer side is, I can probably do better. That's why I'm buying your business to take it over and grow it. So then you get into the conflict of, well, I'm proud of what I have. I'm not going to change. And the buyer saying, well, I need to fix this and this and this if I take over. And that's part of the value gap.
Okay. Now, it's not just about the value of the business. It's also about connecting a seller with a buyer. You're a broker as well.
Yes.
That's part of what you do as
Yes.
well.
It's classically brokering is connecting buyers and sellers.
Okay.
Another way to describe what we do is we're intermediaries in that process.
Right.
Okay, so people who might be interested in buying a business would call you and say, this is what I'm looking for. Do you know of anybody who's looking to sell a
I get one a
business in
day like
space?
that.
Really, you get a lot of calls from people,
Oh, yeah.
I think, who...
Oh yeah, and it's an interesting conversation in its own right because they all want the perfect business.
Right.
And then you go back to the seller community that you're working with, and their businesses aren't perfect because they haven't been working on the business, and they're just in it every day, and they're comfortable with the issues that they have found ways to work around. So you get that conflict. But
How long does an engagement take usually with one of your clients?
it's very likely a year, in some cases more.
Okay.
There's a number of pieces to it. That's the initial process of getting to know the business and getting on the market. And then the last stage of negotiation and financing can take 6 weeks, sometimes a couple of months, after an LOI has been received and accepted.
Okay.
So somebody out there who might be thinking that maybe they want to leave the company they work for and start their own company, one alternative would be for them to buy a going concern, and they should contact you because you might be aware of some business product that might be available to them that they could buy that could kind of give them a jump start into what it is they're planning to do in their next chapter.
Yes, that was especially true when I first started because of the recession and all the people in corporate America who were laid off. They were looking to acquire businesses to attain their next job, so to speak.
Great. Now, how would that, starting from the buyer's perspective then, since we're kind of talking about somebody who might want to buy a business, is it better, worse, different from buying, let's say, a franchise in an existing company to work with somebody like you and buy a one-off business?
Well, you just said it. When you buy an ongoing business, you're getting immediate revenue and profits. If you're starting a new franchise, you're buying a franchise to operate it. You have to invest all your money up front and then wait for the franchise to take hold, and then you start getting your money back. So there's a delayed return on your investment.
So in a franchise, while you might be buying an established brand, you're going to have a cash flow issue you're going to have to deal with during that period of time that you're ramping that business up.
That's correct.
But if I'm buying an existing business, I could immediately start earning a paycheck from that business.
Yes, and you have a track record you can depend on, not just the overall franchisor's reputation.
Okay, great. And as far as making a deal with the seller is concerned, are there financing tricks? I don't necessarily have to pay all that money up front. I might be able to earn my way through the buyout. Is that possible?
There's some of that. Most often, at this point in time, the bank financing is available, and not when I began in 2010 and 2011. The banks were pretty much closed for business, but now there's SBA backing once the government's back in service. The SBA has been very active in supporting small business, and that's the primary way most of the acquisitions go. But then the other side is many of our transactions are to strategic buyers, another company. So they have access to their own credit lines or their own cash in the bank. So that's where the financing will come from, their own sources, not third-party sources.
Is it harder to sell a family business based on relationships that family has made with their customers?
Explain.
Well, let's say I have a family business.
Yes.
And I've made and my business revolves around the relationships I've made with my customers.
Yes.
And clients.
Yes.
So when somebody's going to buy that, is that kind of some kind of a barrier? Because you're going to lose that. You're going to lose that connection.
Theoretically, and it goes to, I think, the question you just asked as well. Most of these scenarios like that, the buyer will negotiate with the seller to stay involved for a period of time for a transition, to protect that issue, to try to make sure that the customers are convinced that the new owner is going to be as good as the old owner.
Right. And so from a seller's point of view, that transaction might be a gradual exit. It might, not just be I'm out on Friday and I'm fishing or golfing on Monday.
When we were talking off camera, you mentioned service businesses. That's quite common in a service business because the services are provided by the principals. And in that case, there's usually an earn-out process where it's literally tied to the success of the transition.
Okay. Now, you work with both people who manufacture things and people who deliver services.
Yes.
Is that right?
That's correct.
So no matter what kind of business I'm selling, if I'm thinking about selling my business, especially if we have a little bit of a runway to plan it, I should give you a call and you can kind of coach me through that whole process.
Yes, we actually call it exit value coaching because there's identified a number of things that are obvious that affect value, and we will coach the business owner to recognize those and things that they could be doing. Not in all cases is it, one of the first and foremost is recurring revenue is very, very common now with all the services online, and that's a value enhancement, but some businesses can't have contracted recurring revenue.
Sure.
So by identifying that and trying to maybe mitigate it a little bit or work around the other issues, that still can bring value to that business.
Okay, great. All right, so people out there that are watching and thinking about selling their business or thinking about buying a business ought to call Paul Visokey.
Yes.
A little later on, you'll get to share with everybody how they can reach you,
Yes.
what your contact information might be.
That'd be great.
And you've been in business at Stony Hill Advisors now for 10 years, so you've had plenty of formal experience. Prior to that, though, you've had some experience in this field as well, didn't you?
I was in the corporate world for most of my career. My most recent company I was a senior vice president of a commercial mortgage company, and before that I was with various startup companies in the telecom technology arena, as in sales management roles primarily, all the way through my final position was VP of sales and marketing for a small company.
Okay, great. So you've had plenty of experience in boardrooms. You know what people generally goes through people's minds when they're about to enter into a transaction like this.
Yes, and the startup experience gives me an understanding of the smaller businesses. And it's one thing to work in a company that has 100,000 employees. You know what's going on in the upper ranks. When you work in a company that has 30 employees, you know what's going on every day.
Sure.
Across, with the owner and with the executives.
Sure. And how big a company, what range of size of companies do you typically arrange to buy or sell?
Our niche is typically business between 5 million and 50 million in revenue.
Okay.
You know, there's some leeway, smaller businesses as well, but we try to target that because it's a key area that's overlooked by the big investment banks. Let's call it Goldman Sachs, et cetera, and it's not in the Main Street category of just selling a job.
Okay, great. So part of what you do is help people figure out how much their business is worth.
Yes.
Part of what you do is to help people do things to make their business worth more money.
Yes.
Coaching them through how much more they could get if they just made these 3 or 4 changes.
Yes.
Which I think is tremendously valuable. It's certainly better if I call you in while I have time to make adjustments to add value to my company.
Yes.
But if I'm really already starting down that road, you mentioned for sale by owner is not necessarily the best model for selling a business.
Correct.
I may have already started down that road, and maybe I'm starting to think that maybe that's not such a good idea. I could still call you.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
We have a number of engagements of that kind where they test the waters. What is common is, somebody I know has told me over the last 10 years, let's say, they would like to buy my business when I'm ready. So when the time comes, they contact them, and they usually say, well, I wasn't really that serious. And then they call us.
All right, so I think what you do is so important, and I think a lot of people tend to kind of undervalue the value of business valuation in marketing. I mean, they just tend to think what I've got is wonderful, and people are immediately going to want to buy it. And I think underestimating that process is probably the biggest mistake a potential seller can make.
Right.
And that's where I see Stony Hill. And how many people are in Stony Hill?
I have 3 brokers and myself.
3 brokers, and it's business brokerage. It's not just valuation.
Oh, absolutely. But the one definition that we try to, in describing our business and separating us from many other people who do similar things, is we have a holistic approach. That is the exit value coaching tied in with valuation, tied in with the representation in the transaction. And we do both buy side and sell side. So we help business owners buy other businesses as well. So we have a complete package of services.
All right, great. So I might be looking to expand my business by acquiring other practices that are similar to mine. You can help me with that too.
Yes.
Well, I can see that as being a really valuable service. How hard is it to keep people realistic about how much they can get from their business?
That's usually one of the biggest issues we have in conversation with a business owner. It's a combination of the need as they plan their retirement, because many of our clients are baby boomer generation.
Right.
So they have a need for X amount of money based on their financial advisor saying, this is what we're going to put into your investments in the future. And then the other part of it is just the hearsay, the conversations that they have with somebody on the golf course that they sold their business for millions and millions of dollars. But those don't compare, because these businesses are not commodities. They don't always have the same attributes. And you factor in the economy. When I started in 2010, the economy was not strong. The values were down. They're up now. If we have another recession in the next 3, 4, 5 years, whenever it may occur, that's going to affect value. I recently looked into the National Economic Bureau of Research, I think it's called. There's been 8 recessions since 1960. The longest duration between one recession and the next was 91 to 2001, 10 years.
10
We're
years.
now 9 years past the last recession.
Okay.
So it's only a matter of time.
It's a
realistically,
cycle.
It's only a matter
It's a
of
cycle.
time. And and the truth is, even if there is a recession, that doesn't mean that you're off the market. That just means you have to plan for the fact that there might be a recession. It's something you have to deal with.
Prepare.
And if you plan far enough ahead, then you can maybe plan far enough ahead to delay the sale until after business picks up following the recession. If you need to move in a hurry, then you might be.
Well, you can move, if you're prepared, you can move quickly. If the recession is coming, see, in a small business, unlike in a publicly traded company, if there's like we've seen recently in the stock market, people buy and sell stock every day, and the values fluctuate. In a private company, when the recession comes, they're not immediately impacted until the economy starts impacting their sales and the other issues that they contend with in running their business. So they have time at the early stage of a recession to quickly go to market and get a higher value than if they wait till in the middle of the recession.
And that's all part of the planning process.
Exactly.
All that. That's something you've seen it coming. You've seen a few of these things happen. So
Yes.
You mentioned a lot of what people know about how much you can get for selling your business. They learn on the golf course by other people. And I'm thinking there's that magical property of a golf club that when you hold it, you have to tell the truth. You know, I mean, I've been on golf courses, and you can't always rely on the other people you're golfing with to tell you the absolute whole truth about what they got. So you can't necessarily go to the bank
As
with what
included,
they tell
how
you.
many strokes did you have?
I know. You're kind of right up there with whatever your golf score
Yeah,
might be.
exactly.
So a lot of that hearsay, a lot of that word of mouth is really inaccurate.
Yes,
and
it
it's
is.
a big part of making people become more realistic in their minds about
Yeah.
what their business.
Well, another way to think about it is and this is mostly true, business owners have the majority of their net worth in their business in an illiquid fashion. So if they're talking with their financial advisor for their liquid investments and they don't know the value of their business, how do you do a complete analysis? And they should get expert advice on the value of the business, not just guess.
Yeah.
How do you deal with employee retention? Because I would think that would be a kind of a sensitive area. If you're going to, the employees, are they nervous? Are they going to quit? Or how do you deal with that?
In the case of the seller?
Right, in the case of the seller, right.
That's a tricky question, is right. More often than not, we recommend that it's something because we do everything confidentially.
Right.
So it's a subject you don't bring up until you have essentially negotiated the agreement and it's ready to close.
Okay.
And then you can bring everybody into the conversation. The exception is, especially where you have some key employees that the buyer needs them to stay on.
Right.
Then they may negotiate before that point in time with the buyer included,
Okay.
and have a kind of a comp plan or a bonus plan it's a retention bonus effectively, where they stay. And so they get brought in, and they're signing non-disclosure, so they're not telling the rest of the employees what they're getting.
Right, okay.
We're going to need to take a break. That is such a great question, and I think I kind of want to come into, after the break, maybe we'll talk a little bit about employee buyouts, because that's another possibility.
Yes,
that
it is.
employees could participate in the purchase of a company, and you might be able to help with that. And I also want to point out that bowling is a much more honest sport than golf. When you're holding a bowling ball, you must tell the truth. I don't know that that's true. Anyway, we'll be back with more CEO chat after these messages. Great guest, Paul Visokey.
Don't go away.
Thank you.
Choosing Medicare coverage can be a very confusing and complicated process. Help is just a phone call away. 856-226-4800. As a licensed insurance agent, I'll assist you in making an informed and confident decision on a Medicare plan that meets your needs, lifestyle, and budget. Call me today for a free, no obligation Medicare benefits consultation. 856-226-4800.
Boardwalks built for fun. Legendary rock and roll clubs.
This is how we do it. Hip hip hop.
Casinos by the ocean.
Hip hip hop.
Now that's New Jersey. 130 miles of beautiful beaches. Solid rock. And everything in between.
Look in the window.
Now that's New Jersey.
Burlington County College.
Is now Rowan College of Burlington County.
Still the same great faculty.
At a community college ranked top 50 in the nation.
Basically, we earn more and pay less.
RCBC students are accepted at Rowan University after graduation.
And get a bachelor's degree for around $30,000.
Online and Mount Laurel students get a 15% Rowan University tuition discount.
And have many scholarship opportunities.
So you earn more and pay even less.
Rowan College of Burlington County.
Your path to success.
They are the greatest fighting force the world has ever seen. But what does it take to strengthen our service members? What does it take to let them know that we stand behind them, wherever they are? What does it take to bridge the distance and keep them connected to family, home, and country? And what does it take to prepare them for their future when their service to the nation is complete? What does it take to strengthen our service members so they can be the greatest force for good in the world? It takes a force. Be a force behind the forces. Share a message today at force.uso.org.
I want to be a contender. I want a warm belly to sleep on.
A big house.
How do I look? Do I look good?
I want to play hard.
My nails done once a month.
I want
a home. I just want a home. I want someone to love.
Last year, more than 30,000 companion animals came to us without homes. 20,000 of them were felines. Let's make some homes together.
Choosing Medicare coverage can be a very confusing and complicated process. Help is just a phone call away, 856-226-4800. As a licensed insurance agent, I'll assist you in making an informed and confident decision on a Medicare plan that meets your needs, lifestyle, and budget. Call me today for a free, no-obligation Medicare benefits consultation, 856-226-4800.
Boardwalks built for fun. Legendary rock and roll clubs.
This is how we do it.
With their spouse, and that becomes an issue.
That's another issue. We'll talk about that. Welcome back to CEO Chat. This conversation has been going on throughout the break. I can think of, in my head, 10 or 15 people that are baby boomers that are thinking about an exit strategy for the companies they've been building over the last 30 years. And probably don't have a clue how to go about it. They just are sort of assuming it'll be an easy process, which is kind of getting us into that question that we were just talking about. The rookie mistakes that a business seller makes because they've never sold a business before. Maybe you can rattle off a few of those and how you help with that.
Yeah, it boils down to being prepared. That's the biggest mistake, and because it impacts a lot of the process. Part of it is the due diligence process, which is very invasive. And if they're not prepared in advance, it becomes a burden while you're still trying to run your business. In case that transaction doesn't happen, the buyer decides not to go forward. They put you through the loop, and you are suffering from it. Then you have to do it again for the next potential buyer. So that's a problem. The second one that we see sometimes is the business owner is not prepared mentally for what they do next, including having the conversation with family and spouse to understand, well, I'm selling my business, I'm going to be coming home, I'm going to be home every day now.
I'm going to be home every day. Do I know what the rest of my life is going to be like on that Monday after the Friday that we close?
And that's a key part of being prepared.
Sure.
Preparing yourself, and one of the things we recommend is find something that you want to do next, an avocation, a charity. It's more than golfing and traveling, because after a while that gets old, unless you're a really avid golfer. But it's trying to think about yourself in your next world, the next life you have.
Wow. Joe also asked a question just before the break about employees in a business and confidentiality during the transaction.
Right.
But I was thinking, actively involving the employees could be an opportunity to allow the employees to buy your business. It could be part of your exit strategy.
Yes, that is. There's actually a formal way to do that. It's called an ESOP, Employee Stock Option Plan. It's managed by the government under the ERISA Act. The process is so strictly controlled that it impacts value, but many business owners don't care that they get less from their business, less equity is extracted, but they've kept their employees whole, and they continue on. So they take that choice.
Okay.
We can point them in the right direction. We're not ESOP providers, but I know a number. I know a number of people who do that.
This is where the real value of Stony Hill Partners becomes clear to me. I mean, we've got people out there that are on the verge of engaging in the most complicated, most valuable transaction of their lives, most important financial transaction of their lives. And if they do it alone, I mean, it takes a little bit of the brain of a lawyer and a little bit of the brain of an accountant and a lot of the brain of a salesperson, really, to be able to do that right. And that's what you guys do.
Correct. And you mentioned it. We classify what we do as a trusted advisor in the same vein as their attorney, their accountant, their financial advisor, and sometimes their business advisors that are consulting on a regular basis, giving them direction and how to improve their business. These are all people they confide in. We should be in that same process of being confided in way before the sale time, so that they can get ready. It goes back to preparedness.
They can get all this. So now's a good opportunity for you to tell everybody how that works. It doesn't cost anything to call Paul Visokey and have the first conversation. How do you start that conversation, Paul?
The first thing I tell people, the very first conversation will be held in confidence. Immediately afterwards, I give them, if it's on the phone, I send them a confidentiality agreement so that they can feel comfortable, and then that carries forward, and any further conversations and any representation we do is under that same confidentiality.
Very important.
Anytime we talk to and we represent them in front of a potential buyer, the buyer must sign a non-disclosure agreement before they even know the name of the business, where it is, or any details. Is that important to keep that level of confidence? The employees, the customers, the suppliers are unaware for good reasons, because you never know when this transaction will happen, if at all.
Or even if it will.
Yeah. So that's part of the process. Then we begin understanding their business. We typically get the financials up front because we need to measure, what it is that the business does make a profit, as an example. It's very hard to sell a business that doesn't. And what is the level of profit, and what is the nature of the business, and that goes back to the market valuations and giving people an idea what the business is worth. And then some people decide they have to wait. The value is not there. Some people go forward, and then our engagement is a process of representing them in finding a buyer.
Okay, and how long does an engagement with you typically take?
We ask for a year of exclusivity.
Okay, great.
Because it does take that long.
So over that, but it's not a full-time year. It's different meetings at different times.
Oh yeah, it's very sporadic. So you only need one buyer.
That's it.
It's not finding 20 customers. I mean, you obviously want to find as many buyers as possible to get some kind of competition.
Sure.
Maybe it affects the price, but that's not typically the way it happens. Usually, there's one buyer who's really interested, and other people are claiming to be interested, and they're lagging. So you don't want to hold up the one buyer to wait for the laggards.
And you know how to tell the difference.
Yes.
So if there's somebody around there who's just looking to kick the tires and get some, they're going to waste a lot of time.
Yes.
You're going to spend a lot of effort trying to figure out what's in their heads.
Right.
If 6 or 7 months from now, they were never serious. You're going to learn that. You wasted all that time with somebody who was never going to give you any money.
I've seen that. Yes.
That's another reason why people need to talk to somebody like you. I think that's so important.
And we take the burden off them and dealing with these people who are kicking tires.
Right.
They're still running a business. So by trusting us, we're doing all that front end work for them. And when there's finally someone that they're going to be engaging with for the transaction itself, we've qualified them. We've made sure that this is legitimate, and they've made some level of offer, or at least a statement of interest to carry the conversation.
To make sure it's real.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to need to wrap up. This has been a great conversation.
Absolutely.
Everybody who's on the verge of thinking about a transaction like this ought to give Stony Hill, Paul Visokey a call. It doesn't have to be painful.
No, it's not.
I mean, that whole, oh my God, I can't even begin to think. I mean, a lot of people who are in their businesses, working in their businesses, don't have time to work on them,
Right.
as we talked about. And that's where you help. You kind of take them out of that whole process, make it less painful for them, and organize it for them. And
Yes, and it's a gradual process. We try to coach them with enough leeway or lead time that it's not a burden. It's a once a month, one meeting a month kind of process to just get them step by step through a process.
Okay, great. Real quick, in your camera, tell them how to reach you and
Okay.
how to call you. Go ahead.
Our website is Stony Hill Advisors, and Stony is S-T-O-N-Y, no E in it. Sometimes we get that, people can't find our site. And obviously my email address is paul@stonyhilladvisors.com. And some people like to use the phone. Our office phone number is 215-543-3508.
And anybody in the Philadelphia, New York area, you like to be close to your customers, so.
Yes. Our primary region of service is Delaware to New York, eastern half of PA.
Okay, great.
Terrific. Paul, thank you for joining us today on CEO Chat.
Thanks, Paul. Good
And thanks all of you. We'll be back in a half an hour with another CEO Chat. Till then, I'm Cini.
I'm Joe Osmendi.
And take care. We'll see you soon. Thanks.
See you in a while.